In this part, we are going to discuss about the female reproductive system. Before discussing about the female reproductive system, we should recall what we have done in the previous class. We had discussed about the male reproductive system as well as the functions and secretions of it. We studied about the primary sex organs of male reproductive system as well as the accessory organs which are helping the reproduction or the spermatogenesis in males. And also we discussed about the semen which are secreted by the male reproductive glands. That is, the semen is an alkaline fluid which has for pH around 7.2 to 7.6 pH, and also the semen is formed by the secretions of the accessory glands of male reproductive system. The semen constitutes the sperms as well as the secretions which are released by the male reproductive glands, and the semen carries the sperms into the female genital tract as well as the secretions of these male glands are helpful for the lubrications of penis during time of coitus. So till here we had discussed in the previous class. In today's class we shall discuss about the female reproductive system and the structure and organs involved in female reproductive system. Let us go through the female reproductive system. The female reproductive system has the primary sex organs, as well as the secondary sex organs. It has primary sex organs as well as the secondary sex organs. So here, which are considered as the primary sex organs? In female reproductive system, the primary sex organs are a pair of ovaries, are considered as the primary sex organs. And which are the secondary sex organs? The secondary sex organs includes the ducts which are involving and helpful in carrying the egg or ovum, as well as the glands like mammary glands. So these are considered as the secondary sex organs in female reproductive system. Now we shall take up the first about the ovaries, that is the primary sex organs. Now, how the ovaries look or where they are located? The ovaries are paired. One is situated at the left abdominal cavity and another one is situated in the right side of the abdominal cavity. So what we can say, the ovaries are located in the pelvic region in the abdominal cavity, We are stressing here, they are situated or located in the abdominal cavity. Why we are stressing? Because if we recall, in the male reproductive system, the testes were not located in the abdominal cavity. Instead, they were present outside the abdominal cavity or external abdominal cavity. Why they were situated outside the abdominal cavity? Because the spermatogenesis requires 2 degrees Celsius lower compared to the internal body temperature, and because of that reasons they are descended to the scrotum part. That means they're outside the abdominal cavity. But here the ovaries are located or situated within the abdominal cavity. And when we speak about the structure of ovary, the ovaries are oval in shape. Ovaries are oval in shape. There are pair of ovaries. I'm highlighting here. A pair of ovaries are present. One is situated at the right side of the pelvic region and other one is situated in the left side of the abdominal cavity. So what we can say about the shape, the ovaries are oval in shape. Oval, or we can also say they are almond in shape. Ovaries are oval or they are in almond shape, and these ovaries are held or they are fixed, attached to the uterus by the help of ligaments. They are attached or fixed by the help of ligaments. What we are observing here, they are attached and fixed by the help of ligaments which are connected with the uterus as well as the pelvic walls. The ovaries are attached and fixed to the uterus by the help of ligaments, as well as the ovaries are held within the pelvic region by the help of thin muscle layers which are present between the pelvic region as well as the ovary. And also when we speak about the ovary, what is the function of ovary? Ovary is meant for the production of female gamete. For the production of female gamete. Here, which is the female gamete? The female gamete is nothing but egg or ovum. The female gamete, that is egg or ovum, is synthesized by the help of ovaries. And also another important function of ovary is to synthesize the steroid hormones. To synthesize the steroid hormones, or they are also called as ovarian hormones. Ovarian hormones. The hormones which are released by the ovaries are also called as steroid hormones, or else they are also called as ovarian hormones. This is the actual function of the ovary. And the ovary produces or it releases the egg to the next part of the female reproductive system. So which is the next part? The second part, which we called before, that is accessory ducts. They are nothing but the fallopian tube. Fallopian tube is the next continued part of the ovary. The fallopian tube has different regions. The wider, broader part of the fallopian tube is called as infundibulum, which is called as infundibulum, and the next continued part of the fallopian tube is called as ampulla. The edges of the fallopian tube, that is edges of the infundibulum, has the finger-like projections. And these finger-like projections are called as, the infundibulum has the finger-like projections, and these finger-like projections are called as fimbriae. I'll repeat. The fallopian tube is connected with the ovary, and the fallopian tube has different regions, modified regions for various functions. The broader, wider part of the fallopian tube, which is connected with the ovary, is called as infundibulum, and the infundibulum edges are modified like a finger-like projections, and these finger-like projections are called as fimbriae. The infundibulum is continued, the tube is continued to form this next structure or the narrow part, which is called as ampulla. And ampulla is continued by the funnel shaped structure, which is called as isthmus. So how many different regions we observed in the fallopian tube? One is infundibulum. Infundibulum is continued by the narrow passage or the narrow tube-like structure, which is called as ampulla, and ampulla is continued by the isthmus part. These are the different regions that can be seen in the fallopian tube, and this isthmus connected and it opens to the uterus part. Now, what is the function of this fallopian tube? The main function of the fallopian tube is to carry the egg which is released from the ovary and it reaches the uterus. And also many regions are modified for the purpose of fertilization. In the beginning or the starting part of the fallopian tube, that is fimbriae, these fimbriae are meant for receiving and collecting the egg or ovum which is released by the ovary, and that is connected to the infundibulum. The infundibulum collects the egg which is released by the fimbriae, and also the fimbriae helps in holding the ovary in a right position. Both the ligaments from the uterus side and the fimbriae from the fallopian tube side, they both hold the ovary in a right position, and the infundibulum receives the egg or ovum which is released by the ovary, and the infundibulum carries the egg through the ampulla, and next it carries to the isthmus part. The fertilization is mainly carried or it occurs in the region of ampulla or the isthmus part. And also this fallopian tube main function, as we said, that is carrying of the egg, and because of that reason the fallopian tube is also called as oviduct. The fallopian tube is also called as oviduct. Why? The main function of the fallopian tube is to carry the egg or ovum released by the ovary through its different parts and reaches the uterus. And also the function of the fallopian tube, another function of fallopian tube is it helps, one is carrying of egg or ovum, collects and carry the egg, and the second function is it helps in fertilization, because in these regions or in this modified parts of fallopian tube itself, the fertilization process is maximally occurred, and because of that reason we can say that the fallopian tube is involved in collecting and carrying the egg or ovum, as well as it helps in fertilization. This is how the fallopian tube works. And also, when we approximately measure, the fallopian tube is an elongated tubular structure which measures for around 10 to 12 centimeter in length, which measures for around 10 to 12 centimeter in its length, and it is a narrow tube starting and connecting from the ovary, and it reaches the uterus. This is the actual tube which is the main connection between the ovary and the uterus. This is about the fallopian tube. And the next part of the female reproductive system next to the fallopian tube is uterus. The next part is uterus. Next part is uterus. When we speak about ovary and fallopian tubes, they are paired in nature. We used the term a pair of ovaries and a pair of fallopian tubes or a pair of oviducts are present in the female reproductive system. They are paired because there is a presence of one fallopian tube in left side as well as there is another fallopian tube in the right side. But when we speak about uterus, the uterus is single. Uterus is single and it is a broader part, or it is wide in nature in the whole female reproductive system, and it is single. There is no pair, or only one uterus is present, and the upper part of the uterus is called as uterine fundus, which is called as uterine fundus. And the uterus is having 3 different layers. That means the uterus is made up of 3 different layers. Which are those 3 different layers? The outermost thin layer is called as perimetrium. Outermost thin layer is called as perimetrium. Outermost thin layer is called as perimetrium, and next to the perimetrium there is a presence of second layer which is thick in nature and which is made up of smooth muscles, and that layer is called as myometrium. The second layer is called as myometrium, and next to the myometrium smooth muscles there is a presence of glandular layer that is called as endometrium. We shall repeat. The first outermost layer which is called as perimetrium is very thin in nature, which is a very thin layer, and next to the perimetrium there is presence of thick layer, and that second thick layer is made up of smooth muscles. Second layer is made up of it is thick and it is made up of smooth muscles. It's made up of smooth muscles. Smooth muscles, and the inner to the myometrium there is a third layer, and that third layer is called as endometrium. When we speak about the perimetrium, it forms and gives structure to the uterus, and the myometrium is a smooth muscle which shows a muscle contraction, a wild muscle contraction during the time of delivery of a baby or during the time of parturition. And what about the endometrium? The endometrium is glandular, and there will be cyclic changes or removal of the endometrium layer during the time of menstrual cycle, and during the time of gestation or during pregnancy period it helps for fixation of the fetus. We shall recall we had speak about the endometrium during the time of implantation event, that is the fixation of the fetus to the inner wall of the uterus. The inner wall here is endometrium, and that fixes or it holds the fetus, or it attaches to the fetus and starts giving, or it provides the nourishment to the developing fetus. This is the actual function of endometrium, and this is about the uterus part, and uterus is commonly called as womb, which is commonly called as womb. And when we observe the shape of the uterus, it looks like an inverted pear. It looks like inverted pear shape. It has inverted pear shape and drawn in nature, and also which is meant for the, that is the cavity or the space which is meant for the developing fetus. This is the actual function of uterus. And the uterus is continued by the next part, which is called as cervix. The next part of the uterus is cervix, and the cavity which is present in the cervix is called as cervical canal, which is called as cervical canal. So what is cervical canal? The cavity which is present in the cervix, that is called as cervical canal. The uterus is continued with the next narrow part, which is called as cervix, and the cervix opens into the vagina, and vagina is also called as birth canal. Birth canal. Along with the cervical canal, along with the cervix, the vagina is also called as birth canal. That means the parturition process occurs, or it is completed through the vagina, and hence along with the cervical canal, vagina can be called as birth canal. This is about the female reproductive system. We shall recall what we have discussed in today's class. Female reproductive system. Female reproductive system, it includes both the primary sex organs as well as the secondary sex organs. The primary sex organs are nothing but a pair of ovaries, and the secondary sex organs is nothing but the tubes as well as the glands that we have not discussed in today's class. The glands are nothing but mammary glands. We shall continue in the next class and we shall discuss about it. When we speak about primary sex organs, a pair of ovaries are present. The ovaries are situated or located in the abdominal cavity in the pelvic regions, and the ovaries are oval or almond in shape, and also they are fixed and attached to the uterus by the help of ligaments, and in this side they are fixed and attached by the help of fimbriae. And also the main function of the ovary is to produce the egg or ovum, which is called as nothing but the female gamete in humans. And also this egg or ovum, which is released by the ovary, is collected by fimbriae and the infundibulum. And also another main function of the ovary is to synthesize or produce the ovarian hormones or the steroid hormones. The released egg or ovum by the ovary is collected by fimbriae, and the wider part of the oviduct, that is nothing but the infundibulum. The infundibulum collects the egg from the ovary and it carries through it to the next part, that is nothing but ampulla, and ampulla is continued by the next funnel shaped structure, which is called as isthmus. And these three regions, that is infundibulum, ampulla and isthmus, forms the complete fallopian tube. Fallopian tube is also called as oviduct because duct, that is nothing but a passage. Oviduct means it is a tube modified for the purpose of carrying the egg from the ovary to the uterus. And also the oviduct may measure for around 10 to 12 centimeter in its length, and this oviduct will opens or it releases the egg at the region of the uterus. The uterus as well as the oviducts are connected with each other, and the upper part of the uterus is called as uterine fundus. The uterus is single and large and also broad in nature, and the uterus is fixed and attached to the pelvic girdles or to the pelvic regions by the help of muscles. And also the uterus is made up of three different layers which are performing different functions. The outermost thin layer of uterus is perimetrium, and the perimetrium will give the shape and structure and support to the uterus. And next to the perimetrium there is a thick layer. There is a thick layer which is made up of smooth muscles, and that thick layer is called as the myometrium. It is made up of smooth muscles. The myometrium is helpful for creating or for the production of wild contraction during the time of childbirth or during the time of parturition, that helps to push the fetus or the complete developed embryo during the time of parturition, and that is the function of myometrium. And next to the myometrium there is a presence of endometrium, that is made up of glandular tissues, and this glandular layer will show cyclic modification or the cyclic changes during menstrual cycle. And the endometrium function helps in attachment or fixation of the blastocyst after the implantation. After the fertilization, what the blastocyst is formed, that is fixed or attached to the endometrium. We have recalled in the previous class that is nothing but implantation is nothing but fixation or attachment of the fetus. to the inner wall of the endometrium. That is what we are speaking here. Inner wall. Which is the inner wall? Endometrium. That fetus or that embryo will fix or attach it to the endometrium. As soon as the implantation, the endometrium will provide nourishment to the developing fetus. In case if the fertilization has not occurred, what happens? This endometrium will be ruptured and that will be released through the vagina in the form of red fluid, that what we observe during menstrual cycle. So what we can say, the endometrium will show cyclic changes during the time of menstrual cycle, and the uterus is continued by the next a very narrow part in the female reproductive system, that is cervix. The cervix has a cavity which is called as cervical canal, and along with the cervical canal and the cervix, the vagina forms the birth canal. The continued part of the cervix, the narrow region what we are observing here, this is called as the vagina, and this is also called as the birth canal, because this is an opening which is meant for the parturition, and hence we can also call it as birth canal. This is about the female reproductive system. In the next class, we shall discuss in detail about ovary as well as the glands which are involving in the female reproductive system.